should start with the thing everyone's talking about, and that is how un-Mario like Chris Pratt's voices.
The Mario trailer. Let me just put this up here quickly. You know,
I thought this trailer was cool.
I really like this trailer as well. I
Yeah.
think we had no idea what a Mario movie would look like. I had no
Mm.
idea. And I think this set the tone, which was quite cool.
Yeah, I love basically the first 80% of it where it's just Bowser and his Koopa Kingdom attacking this like
The penguins.
penguin kingdom, and I thought it was quite funny. Like when the penguin is like, "Do you yield?" I thought it was fucking hilarious. I
Like,
died
oh my
laughing.
god. Yeah, so I
Jack
think
Black's Bowser is on point.
it
Just
is
sounds
perfect.
incredible.
It's so weird because when the cast was announced, like I had no doubts about Jack Black. But hearing him speak, because you almost expect a Jack Black voice, obviously. But it sounds like it's you're hearing Bowser, but you can just hear it's Jack Black.
Yes.
It's really good, super super well cast, I'd say. And you only see him for like a minute, but yeah,
Uh,
that's too good. But yeah, Chris Pratt's Mario, on the other hand, it's been funny reading the discourse this week because I think he said like, oh, I've put a lot of work into this. The accent I've got is unlike anything you've heard.
I
And
mean, he's right. We've never heard Chris Pratt in the Mario universe before.
but for the most part, the dialogue you do hear from Mario is literally Chris Pratt's like, oh, okay, I'm Mario. And then
Chris Pratt.
there's one line where you can hear like an Italian twang, like just a hint
Awful.
of Italian, yeah. Oh my god, what
It's
happened to your
just.
face? It's not
Oh
moving.
no, I'm frozen.
How did this happen? There you go.
I thought. Is it Keegan Michael Key?
Oh, it's Toad.
Toad is
Also,
phenomenal. Also,
yeah, also really
very
good.
very good. Yeah, it's like this trailer seems fantastic. It's just Chris Pratt sounds shit. Like I'm sorry. Like people are like, oh, it's entirely inoffensive and whatever. Yeah, it's entirely inoffensive, but it's also like
It is,
when
but
you compare it to Bowser and Toad, like there's work being done there. Chris Pratt's just
exactly.
like, nah,
He's just doing his
nah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. And to then be like, oh, it's unlike anything you've ever heard. It's just like, come on, dude.
It's laughable.
Anyway, the movie
This
looks
is
pretty
out
great. April.
March or April next year.
I think March or April. It was meant to be out this holiday, but got delayed. This
Yeah.
movie is going to make a stupid amount of money. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely not going to be a problem for Nintendo, and it's going to lead to bigger things, I think. So,
I
yeah.
was thinking like chances of a Mario game tying into this, I think are pretty high. I could be wrong, but
It's kind of wild we haven't had a mainline Mario game
yeah,
since.
but it
See,
makes me think that they're working on something to tie into this movie somehow. I mean,
maybe.
I don't know. That would make sense to me, but yeah.
Even if it's not like an adaptation of the movie's
I know,
story, which I think would be a bad idea.
yeah,
Just
just
something that
a
you can
Mario
buy.
game. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that would be smart. And Nintendo's done that in the past. They've held games for like years to wait to launch them at the correct time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We should talk about all this new CD Projekt Red stuff.
Oh boy, there's a lot
Yeah, so
coming out from the
basically,
studio.
Polish studio CD Projekt Red gave an outlook on kind of what they are working on for the foreseeable future, and it turns out they are committing hard to The Witcher and Cyberpunk and a new IP, which they have not announced yet. So the sort of like broad strokes of this is that the Polish studio, their current focus is a new Witcher trilogy, which the first game will come out no earlier than 2025, it seems. And their plan is to have the entire trilogy wrapped within 6 years of that, so by 2031, which seems ambitious to
That
me, but
is super ambitious.
yeah. But it's not the only Witcher game in development. The Molasses Flood, the creators of In the Flame and the Flood, they are working on their own sort of Witcher game. And there's another third-party studio which wasn't disclosed, also working on another Witcher game. Obviously, these don't mean Witcher RPGs, because when you think of Witcher games, you think of like Gwent or Thronebreaker or
Yeah.
smaller projects. For Cyberpunk, you've then got Phantom Liberty, which is the expansion coming for
Metal Gear
2077
Solid 5.
next year.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Liberty. Um, and then they are going to be working on a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. This is taking place at CD Projekt Red's new Los Angeles studio.
Hmm.
So apparently, a lot of the team leads there are actually moving to the US to lead this there. So
Sure.
I don't know whether this means this gets developed in parallel with the new Witcher trilogy, but they did
Yeah.
specifically mention the Witcher stuff is what will be first to come out. So,
Yeah.
and then beyond that, there is a brand new IP, which is basically just them saying, "Yeah, brand new IP."
I'm just doing a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so much in the pipeline for this studio, which is exciting. Like I do like CD Projekt Red. I think it's a shame their good name got tarnished by Cyberpunk's rocky launch. But I think they have since redeemed themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, Cyberpunk is still like a good game. It's a lot better today than it was at launch. I think a lot of people are now diving into it because of edge runners, like we touched on last week. And like I know in our group of friends alone, a lot of people have just now fallen in love with the game almost 2 years after launch. So see more work coming out of the studio and more Witcher stuff and Cyberpunk, like very exciting. Very curious to see what the new IP is.
I'm just reading here in the article written by good pal Darren Bernthas.
Oh my god, what a guy.
That in the CD Projekt Red briefing, they did state that they are starting a new parallel AAA development strategy. So they are working in parallel.
Okay.
So yeah, interesting.
Cool.
Interesting. Hopefully they never have to do what they did for Cyberpunk 2077.
No, I hope that is a good hard lesson learned.
I hope it was a hard lesson learned. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh god.
I for one, I'm keen. Like I'm keen for more Cyberpunk and more Witcher. I know a lot of people aren't. I can't get enough of, especially The Witcher. I love that universe. So yeah, more of that, please.
Yeah.
I guess we can touch on Overwatch 2 having a rough launch. We kind of spoke about this already.
So yeah, they said they were DDoSed, which
they blamed DDoS attacks, which
could be.
could be, but the fact that it's still ongoing, I'm not super sure about that.
Yeah.
And you know, beyond that, there's been a whole bunch of issues with like people trying to merge accounts and progression not carrying over and this and that, and some people buying the $700 Watcher edition and getting nothing. And so yeah, there's a lot for Blizzard to put out here, and it's just, you know, for a game that needed a good launch because hey, the kind of like consensus around the sequel en masse was like, why is this even required? It's just kind of not gone well, and that, I guess that sucks for a lot of the people who put a lot of time into this. So
yeah, it'll be fixed. But on that account merger thing, even that it's wild. So like good pal John Michael has played Overwatch 1 on PC, but also played a lot on PlayStation. More so on PlayStation than PC. He has not got like any of his cosmetics from the base game. And if you merge your account, you get added to a queue. I think they're doing it manually for some other reason. And you can see what number you are on that queue. And he is number 330,000, or he was.
330,000.
Yeah. So whether he'll get all his stuff remains to be seen. But good lord, that it seems like an admin nightmare for Blizzard. I don't know what's going on.
What do you want to look at next?
Suppose there were quite a few trailers and things shown this week, so we can fly through them relatively quickly. Suppose let's start with
look at Dead Space first.
Dead Space.
Oh wow, all three of these trailers are EA games. How's that?
I did not make that connection, but yeah. So if you don't know, Dead Space, good horror game that came out about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
If not more.
Way more.
I don't know why your camera keeps freezing. That's hilarious.
I think the first one was 2008.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, it's
2011.
Yeah.
No, that can't be right.
That seems a bit later. Yeah.
Came out in 2011. Oh,
Yeah.
2008. Yeah, I was
Okay,
right.
so OG Dead Space, but 14 years old just about now, getting a proper remake.
Yep.
And it looks real good. I mean, Dead Space on the PlayStation 3 where I played it looked good. Lighting was great, but now you think 2 generations on, oh my god, this game is going to sing on current gen hardware.
I'll be real. I saw comparisons between old and new, and it's in some cases like okay, it's very clear to see which is the
Mm.
new one, but in a lot of cases, it's like wow, this is a lot closer than I thought it would be, and it just shows you like
How good it was
the
back then,
aesthetic.
yeah.
Yeah, the
Mm.
aesthetic just holds up so well. But yeah, I mean, from a gameplay perspective, this is a big remake because like the first game never had free motion in 0G. You could only
Mm.
jump between points.
Yeah.
The later games had free motion, so they've kind of added that here, which means a lot of puzzles had to be redesigned.
Mm.
Isaac Clarke talks now in this one. He was
Yeah.
completely mute in the first one. And they've said that this one is an entirely single camera cut, which was not the case for the first
That
game.
is
So
awesome.
yeah, there's a lot of work being done. This is a proper ground up remake, and I fucking love Dead Space. So
This is one of those things where I'm very excited to play, but I'm also like, oh god.
again, yeah, the first Dead Space is proper terrifying.
Dead Space is one of the
Two and
most
three were more actiony. They were still scary in their own right, but Dead Space 1 is unnerving. It
one of
is
the scariest games
really
I've
good.
played. That sound
Really
design, oh my, that's
exceptional.
something. So that's
I hope it lives up to that, because
yeah,
that's always the danger with remaking something that's so well renowned and regarded. It's you can mess something up quite easily. So it's not just this is a visual thing.
yeah.
But yeah, I have faith. Motive is a good studio, so I think they'll do a good job.
In other trailers, this one was. I mean, I think we kind of knew this was coming anyway, but it was quite something to see the new Need for Speed trailer. And
Yeah,
let me
this
tell
thing
you,
looks cool,
it
man.
looks real cool. There's something. So if you're watching the video feed, you're watching the trailer. There are. It's like It almost looks like live action, but these people have been painted. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very Japanese anime style, but its own distinct kind of style as well.
Mm,
Like
but
very tuna era, like uh, graffiti style to it
yeah,
almost.
but if you've watched Street Fighter 6 gameplay, this reminds me so much of that. Of in Street Fighter, you land a punch and then like paint splashes out of the
I didn't
characters.
even put that together, but yeah,
Yeah,
you're very
now
right. Yeah.
this Need for Speed, it has that thing of the style. It almost looks kind of cel shaded, but it's not. But
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
races themselves, it looks like there's graffiti that like splashes onto the screen. It's very cool. I
Like
think
you've got the like tire smoke that is like very
yeah,
cartoony
no,
from your car. Yeah.
Noel actually mentioned at the office this week. It's funny how all these years later, it feels like a lot of people are catching up with what Into the Spider-Verse did with this like
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know, like
Yeah.
these bright, punchy colors. And it does make me think if we've got Street Fighter 6 and our Need for Speed, are we just going to see this trend of this style of game for like the next year or two?
That's actually a really good comparison because
Yeah.
like looking at the footage now,
Mm,
it almost looks like the graffiti elements run at like a different frame rate to the rest
mm,
of the game, which is
yeah.
exactly what Into the Spider-Verse did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good pull. Did we say the name for this game? Need for Speed Unbound.
Unbound, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
Unbound
out.
coming December
Oh my
2nd.
god.
Yeah.
It's
Like
out,
out in less than 2 months.
which
Yeah.
is crazy. And
Yeah.
it is funny
I'm keen
because
to see proper gameplay because I don't know how much of that was like, you know,
cinematics, yeah.
yeah,
Or
or like realistic of what you'll actually see when you're playing the game. So
if the gameplay looks like that though, that is very cool. I love that
it's the
style.
most interesting Need for Speed in a decade
Since Underground, still the best Need for Speed game.
with that Snoop Dogg track that kicks in at
Oh
the
god,
beginning.
that is still one of the most iconic soundtracks. I think everyone
My
will
God.
recognize that
Underground and
soundtrack.
Underground 2. Oh my. What
Real good.
great game. I will say though that if you want to play a really good game and they've remastered it recently, a really good Need for Speed. I think it came out in 2011. It was the same year as Portal 2. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit that they at the time was like a remake
It is
or
like
reintroduction of Hot Pursuit.
reintroduction, yeah.
and now they've remastered it. That game fucking rules. Like,
Mm,
it's so good.
that's
So,
cool.
yeah.
There
I
you
think
go.
that's the last time I had a lot of fun with Need for Speed, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And then in the last slew of EA news, we have Wild Hearts was revealed. Was it
I
like
think
a
a
week
week prior.
ago?
I think we spoke about it
We
last week.
spoke
Yeah.
about it. Now we've got actual gameplay footage. It looks
Listen, this
interesting.
is good. Yeah.
It's
This
one of
looks
those things where. So this is me obviously nitpicking because I'm now a big Monster Hunter fan. It's one of the things where I'm like, it looks interesting, but how does it feel to play it? Like,
Let's go. Look at that Breath of the Wildness in there.
it's yeah. Breath of the Wild introduces the glider, and every other game has to have some
Exactly.
interpretation of
I'm
it.
waiting for Ghost of Tsushima 2 to have a glider.
Oh my god, I would not be surprised. I mean, Horizon Forbidden West had its own glider, very
Yeah.
necessary. So
Which made no sense. It was just energy.
it is
It's
just
not catching
energy.
fucking air. What's it doing?
So visually, I think this game looks gorgeous. I do like
Yeah.
the style it's going for, and in terms of how they sort of not reinventing, but adding their own flair to this sort of genre of
Mm.
monster hunting games is that, it is very much you're an old school warrior who's like wielding a katana, for example. But there's this cool technological spin where you're using I don't know if they explain what it is, but you're using these tools, very futuristic things to, navigate the map, to glide, to do cool moves, that sort of thing.
Even
So
just like do a double jump there. You like
yeah,
threw a panel below you and then did a double
yeah,
jump.
but
Yeah.
then like I see the combat, and I'm like, I hope it feels good. Like it looks okay. It still
Mm.
looks a little bit rough to me, but I hope it is as fun to play as it looks because it does look good. So
What I do
we'll
like
see.
is that, I mean, again, you'd only really know once you get your hands on it, but it does look
Mm,
like you have to do some attacks back off, some
mm,
attacks back off. It doesn't look like a Muso game, which, considering it's Koei Tecmo
mm.
developing it, it
Oh
could
yeah,
have
it's
just happened.
a bit different to their usual fare. Oh, that poor person
Yeah.
just got run
Cool.
over.
Rip. It looks
um,
fun though. I think the whole building element's gonna really come down into, I think that's gonna be your gear. Like
mm,
that's what you're gonna choose, like what to take on a hunt. And
exactly.
like
Yeah.
like you saw there, he did some fire attacks and then he was placing some traps. So I
Mm,
think that's gonna be the preparation part. And like you would know, preparation is everything in a Monster Hunter game.
mm.
So yeah,
So yeah, I'm
it looks
quite
good.
keen to see more of that.
Visually, it looks really good. I
Yeah.
think it looks beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
As in,
Uh,
this would not run on Switch. Beautiful.
no, definitely not. That's not a Switch game. It might come to the cloud. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um.
God, I couldn't think of anything worse trying to play Monster Hunter via the cloud.
Oh
Oh,
my god. And then yeah, last few pieces of news. The PlayStation 5 has been jailbroken, but as you told me before we started recording, that you can load games onto your PS5 if you jailbreak it, but you cannot launch them. So rip those
yeah.
dreams
So
of playing things like PT today.
yeah, I was looking at this, and it was Lance McDonald, who's is quite prolific in the Bloodborne community for unofficial patches that get it up to 60 FPS
Mm.
and all of that. He was showcasing this, and yeah, he jailbroke it and he was able to download PT, but you can't launch it. So yeah, it only gives you read and write access, no execute access. So,
But I
but
mean,
I guess it's the first step.
yeah, I was gonna say, does this not open up the door to keep tinkering away to maybe launching stuff?
Mm,
I don't know, but yeah, it is interesting that these things take time. Like it's not like the PlayStation launches and then within a week it's just broken. I think it takes people a long time to figure out how to, get into the nitty gritty.
mm.
But I don't know. Yeah. In last pieces of news, oh, I'm like dying to sneeze, but it's not coming. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Kojima Productions confirms that Elle Fanning will feature in its next game. Everyone pretends to be shocked.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't it kind of like presumed from the first teaser? Like
I think so,
someone
yeah.
had like a contrast negative on that thing and figured out it was her anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like there was a producer who changed their or reshared that thing with the hashtag Death Stranding 2. So like
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Death Stranding
Yeah, it's
2.
Death Stranding 2.
Wait,
I think the argument, well, not the argument, but the question was whether this was Death Stranding 2 or the cloud game that he's making for Microsoft. So,
yeah.
yeah, guess
But
it's Death
I
Stranding
feel
2.
I feel Death Stranding 2's a lot closer. So to
Yes,
make
I
more
would
sense
assume so.
there.
Yeah. I think that's definitely coming out before the cloud game. I would not be surprised if it gets revealed at the Game Awards and comes out like next year.
Hmm.
Because when did Death Stranding come out?
It's a few years
2020.
ago now, though. Yeah, no, I think it's 2019. Even it was like quite a while ago.
Death Stranding, yeah,
Maybe it's
2019.
yeah.
So 2003, 2023
23
is 4
seems
years,
seems about right.
and it was a long time between announce and release of the
Mm,
first one, but he was also building a studio, so
exactly.
it's a completely different ball game now.
Yeah.
So
On
4 years, I think, yeah.
on that, have you listened to Kojima's new podcast, Brain
I have
Structure?
not given it a go yet. Have you tried it?
It's great. I love Kojima.
Is it? I need to give it a
But
go.
it's funny because the whole thing is like, brain structure. We dive into the brain of Hideo Kojima and how does he come up with his ideas. And the first episode is very interesting. He's
Is
like,
it translated? Sorry to
oh
like
yeah, yeah.
interrupt.
So you can listen straight up in Japanese, or there's like an English dubbed version where you hear him speak, and obviously somebody's like translating over him,
Okay, got you.
which is
Okay.
it's quite cool. But it's funny because the first episode is like it introduces a podcast and he touches a bit on how his history and how Metal Gear came to be, whatever. Like, cool, that's pretty interesting. Episode 2 is straight up. He's like, yeah, I watched Nope. I really love this movie, and he spends the full half an hour just talking about this movie. And I was like,
His
uh,
his podcast is basically his tweets, like a
yeah,
tweet
but
log.
I was like,
Tweet.
okay, like you've marked, and I guess you could be like, okay, like I understand why Kojima does certain things because obviously, like he loves this sort of genre of movie, and he
Yeah,
explains like his history, but it's just so left field from first episode of like this is how Metal Gear came to be. To I watched Nope and I really liked it, and like it's just him rambling about it, and then episode 3 and 4, it's him with a Japanese anime director whose name I cannot recall. But it's just them like old friends catching up, talking about like producing and just their history. And then episode 5, he's got Jordan Peele, the director of Nope, and he's
Oh,
talking to
okay, so
him.
he's back on Nope.
But it's so I was like, this is so strange. And it's funny though, because like not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's like every episode's like brain structure. We dive into Hideo Kojima's brain and how he comes up with these ideas. It's like on this episode, we talk to Jordan Peele, and it's them going, Jordan Peele's like, hey man, like I listened to your podcast that you watched, Nope. I was like very touched by it because like I'm a huge fan of yours. And it's just them complimenting each other. Like the whole time, like I love your work. No, I love your work. And it's like, okay. Worth listening to
Oh
though.
my
Would
god.
recommend. I love Kojima. It's like the most Kojima thing though. I'm like, of course this is what the podcast is.
I need to listen to it. I really need to listen to it.
And episodes are short. They're like 25, 30 minutes each. Okay, but sorry, Kojima's working on Death Stranding 2 and podcasting between all of this. Last piece of news, which is pretty exciting. You no longer need to, and you don't no longer need a reservation to buy a Steam Deck.
Yeah, I think this was
Pretty
coming.
cool.
Yeah, the manner in which like reservations, Valve kept saying, "Oh, we've got orders out quicker than possible." This that.
Mm,
Yeah, now you don't need to wait in a queue. As soon as you order, it will 1 or
mm,
2 days later it will ship, which is rad. And I hope with this stock backlog now, or buffer, they can maybe expand to new regions, or focus on that,
mm,
because now the focus isn't on like, God, we need to keep up for demand, whatever.
mm,
And I think a lot of this is also semiconductor production ramping way up
yeah.
this year. So,
Mm,
yeah, but that's cool. The docking station's coming out too, which is pretty neat. It's not like the Switch dock, which plugs it into power and gives it more power and stuff like that. This
mm,
is literally just it's the dock that you can put it on, and then you can connect like Ethernet and USB and display out, so you can
mm.
use it on a monitor.
Becomes like
I
a portable
for me
PC,
it would be
basically.
cool, yeah, like as a portable PC. Like if I want to because I don't think playing the Steam Deck works when you're playing games at its native 720p. That's what it's
Mm,
designed for. As soon as you try and play games at 1440p or even 1080p, it starts like it's
it's
not
happening.
coping with.
Yeah.
So I think a dock would be quite useful for like, oh, if I want to have my desktop at my TV, or I don't have a
Mm,
desktop, but I want a PC that can do like pretty light word processing,
mm.
I can use the Steam Deck. Oh, thanks for sneezing on me, Toby. Sorry. Um, so yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know what the dock costs because every time I go to Steam, it's like this isn't available in your region, and I'm like, okay, well, I just want to see the fucking
I just want to
price.
see the
Like,
price, man. Like, come on.
I'm pretty sure it's expensive because these sorts of docks are not cheap. I
Mm.
would wager about $100.
And
Like,
you'd need a controller to go with it if you wanted
yeah, well then,
to
yeah,
play.
you can
Yeah.
plug in like a mouse and keyboard
Mm.
or yeah, a controller. Yeah.
It is
Um,
interesting. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I have zero context on how hardware actually works, but it is interesting that it doesn't add any juice to the Steam Deck. Like, if it upscaled
yeah.
to 1080, gave it just a little bit of extra processing power.
I think because Valve is like so keenly tuned the performance of the thing is it's a PC, it's not a Switch.
Mm,
The Switch,
exactly.
as
Yeah.
soon as you unplug it, it goes into like a lower power operating mode for battery
Mm,
life.
yeah.
The deck is like you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like you
Mm,
can set the power limit of your thing to the max or 50%, and that will affect battery life. So I think that's
yeah.
why it doesn't give it any extra
Okay.
juice.
So,
Like
okay, that makes
because
sense.
you can push it to its max already. Like it
Okay.
doesn't yeah.
Okay.
Um, so yeah.
Well, there we go. That's all the gaming news this week.